Ooh, this woman is taking the CELPIP exam, but she doesn't know much about Canadian topics. And that's a problem, because the CELPIP exam is a Canadian exam. So she needs to know about Canadian topics. Do you know anything about Canadian topics? Okay, I've helped a lot of people prepare for the CELPIP exam, and one thing I find, most of the time, people don't know much about Canadian things. Okay, for example, do you know what these are? These are called the Northern Lights. The Northern Lights. Okay, they're a very Canadian thing. I've seen the Northern Lights several times from here in Calgary, but if you go further north in Canada, you can see these amazing lights. They're beautiful in the sky. Okay, so this is just one simple example of things that people don't know. So if there's a question on the CELPIP test about Northern Lights, what are you going to think? Northern Lights. Sometimes if you don't know one topic or one vocabulary word, it can just ruin the whole answer. You have no idea what the reading passage or the listening is about. Okay, so these kinds of topics are very important. So in this lesson and in the next few lessons in my CELPIP series, I'm going to be teaching you about Canadian topics, Canadian animals, Canadian issues, things that could very likely be on the CELPIP test. So, hey, if you like getting practice like this, I would be so happy if you subscribe to my channel right down there. Okay, so this lesson is about residential schools. Do you know what residential schools are? Have you ever heard of this before? Well, this has to do with First Nations people, okay, or Aboriginal people. There's different terms for these people: Indigenous people, Aboriginal, First Nations. Now, some years back, the term Indians was used to describe these amazing people. People would call them Indians. Now, that term has become not very politically correct in recent times. So try not to use the word Indians. Try to use, First Nations, Aboriginal, Indigenous people. Now, one term that is very offensive that you should never use is Redskins. Okay, some racist people, they call these people Redskins. Don't use that word. That's very offensive for these people. Okay. Now, do you know anything about the history of Canada? Do you know anything? Well, basically, white settlers came from Europe and took their land. They took these First Nations people's land. Okay, they were here first. And the white settlers came from countries like England, France, Germany, and they took their land. Not only that, but white settlers killed thousands and thousands of their people. Okay, not only that, but from the 1800s to 1996, Canada had residential schools. Okay, these were schools started by the government, and they were boarding schools. Do you know what a boarding school is? A boarding school is a school where students live. Okay, they're far away from their families. They eat their meals at the school. They sleep at the school. They do everything at the school. Okay. Now, the purpose of these schools was to help assimilate these First Nations people into normal Canadian society. Okay, there was sort of a divide, and these people were not getting an education, jobs, that kind of thing. And so the Canadian government set up these residential schools to sort of help integrate these people into society. That's what assimilate means. Assimilate means to adapt or to fit into society. Okay, now residential schools were a disaster. A disaster. They are a very shameful part of Canadian history. Okay, these children who stayed in these schools, they were forced to convert to Christianity, okay, and they were forced to abandon their culture and their language. I mean, they couldn't even see their family, okay? This was absolutely terrible. They were not allowed to speak their language. They had to speak English. They were not allowed to write letters home to their family in their language. They got punished. They got treated so badly. Okay, now a lot of these children were sexually abused and abused in a lot of other ways, okay? And they were malnourished. Malnourished means, where you don't get enough healthy food. So you get sick. You don't get enough nutrients in your body to be healthy. So your body gets sick. Okay, so a lot of these children got sick and died. 3,200 children died. Probably more than that. Okay, the government doesn't really know how many children died, but at least 3,200, probably a lot more. Children, innocent, beautiful children, died. Now, I just want to stop for a moment and say, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that this happened. I am so sorry that my race, my ethnicity, white people came from Europe and did these terrible things to the Indigenous people in Canada. They are nice people. They are good people. So many bad things happen, and I am deeply sorry about that. Okay, now, a lot of these people suffer from alcoholism, crime, murder. It's just a very bad situation here in Canada. I remember in my first year of university, I lived near my university, and so I would walk to university every day. And on my walk, I would always walk through this one park. And every day, when I was walking through this park, I would see a group of Aboriginal people sitting under a tree, sniffing glue. Do you know what sniffing means? Sniffing means this. And glue is the sticky substance that holds things together, right? So why are they sniffing glue? Well, it's to get high, right? When you sniff glue, you get sort of high. It's sort of like doing drugs, right? And they often, do other things, other kind of cleaning products or things. They use those chemical products to get high. Now, a lot of these people are, involved in crime. A lot of them have been victims of murders and murdered other people. Okay, so this is a very bad situation. But what I would say is, what do you expect? What do you expect if you take someone's country? A lot of Canadians blame these people. They say, those Aboriginal people, they are involved in crime. They're bad people. They're criminals. They murder people. They do drugs. They're lazy. They don't work. Okay, a lot of Canadians blame these people for problems in society. Well, what I would say is, what do you expect? First you take their country and then you abuse them so much for over 100 years. Of course there are going to be major problems, massive situations. That's why I want to apologize that my race has done, such terrible things to these people. If you want to research some more on this topic, you could do some research on murdered and missing Indigenous women in Canada. Okay, murdered and missing. So many of these women are missing or murdered. Okay, Now, these women make up 4% of Canada's female population, okay, and they account for 16% of the female murders in Canada. That is crazy. That is so much higher than like what they represent with the population. Okay, not only that, I mean, our prison system is full of Indigenous people. I think 20% or something. I can't remember the exact number, but I think like 20% of our prison system in Canada is made up of Indigenous people. Okay, and these, I mean, they don't make 20% of the population. Okay, so I mean, this is just a huge problem. This is such a sad situation. Now, in recent times, our last few prime ministers have started talking about this and made official apologies. For example, Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau, they were our last two prime ministers. Well, Justin Trudeau is still our prime minister. Both of them have issued public apologies for the residential school system and other problems other tragedies that these people faced at the hands of the government. Okay, the government and churches, Christians, really did a lot of damage to these people. Okay, so there is reconciliation happening. There is something called the Truth and Reconciliation Committee or Commission or something like that. Basically, it's, Canada is trying to bring healing to this incredible problem, but it takes time. It's a long journey ahead. This will not be solved very easily. So hey, I just want to tell you about a documentary. If you're interested in this topic, if you want to learn more about this, this is a great documentary on YouTube. I'll put the link to this documentary down in the description below this video. Okay, it's called We Will Be Free. Now, a lot of people, if you're an immigrant in Canada from India or China or other places, you may have never seen or never interacted with these people. Okay, I mean, you probably don't know anything about them. Okay, well, they speak English, but they speak sort of a different kind of English than you're like Canadians like me. Okay, they have their traditional languages, right? Now, unfortunately, a lot of their languages are dying. So English has a tendency of crushing small languages. So unfortunately, that is happening. But the government is trying to take steps to preserve these languages. These people's languages. They don't want them to go extinct. Okay, so hey, if you want to sort of see who these people are, hear their stories, I would really encourage you to watch this documentary. It's a good documentary, and I think you're going to learn a little bit more about Canada. But hey, I want to know, did you know about this? Did you have any idea about this before watching this lesson? I think even a lot of Canadians, like people that I know, they don't know about this. They don't know what the term residential schools means. Okay, so I mean, it's not just you. If you don't know about this, don't feel bad, because a lot of Canadians don't even know about this. But I want to help people to find out about what this is, because this is a very big situation in Canada. So let me know your answer down there in the comments, and I'll see you over in the next episode of Mad English TV. Take care.